Just me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the Octopus Movement podcast, where we are looking at all of the founding members of the Octopus Movement. What is the Octopus Movement? You ask. It is a group of non-judgmental, forward-thinking, nonlinear thinkers. What is nonlinear? We're going to see an example of that right now. So I'd like to welcome Shehnaz Soni, and the author of The Quantum Being and a member of our aerospace engineering industry who has leapt above anything that you're going to expect. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Lydia, for this great opportunity. And my God, the octopus, right? My God, when I think of octopus, I just feel like it's such a multidimensional name, which the name speaks for itself, being the nonlinear, because octopus is everything but linear.
Yeah, yeah. Everything but what we tend to think is normal, and what is normal but a set of statistics. But seriously, it is such a beautiful, beautiful a symbol for us with the 9 brains and the 4 hearts, and not like a lot of other things on Earth, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it helps us to think outside of that box. So, and that is when I listen to you, that's there are no boxes. There are soft walls, and there's exploration, and there's curiosity. And it's one of the things that I think, I personally think, makes octopus members be connected to one another, is our insatiable curiosity. So I want to ask you, what is it that attracted you to the octopus movement? Do you remember that spark?
Yeah. So there were like three things that happened, all guiding me towards it, right? First, of course, Anya introduced me to Perry, and I really liked Perry's energy, right? So that was the first important thing, because if someone who represents the foundation, I have to make sure that I align with their energy, right? And I fell in love with Perry. I mean, we met, and it was just like there was no question about that, right? Then on top of that, the octopus has a number, which actually is the number that my son's car nameplate has, that number in it. So there was that connection there as well. So it was almost like the universe. And I've noticed that I actually use the, because, everything in the universe comes into creation when 3 points come together like a triangle, right? Because we, at the fundamental level, if we want to represent our existence, is represented by tetrahedron, which is a triangle. So that was actually discovered by Pythagoras, and then recently discovered by the quantum emergence team that's working in LA to understand our existence and what we are made of at the fundamental level. So therefore, that to me has become my methodology. As so that way you can also do a better discernment, right? You don't just walk into something because you are being influenced or programmed by someone because they are in your life. So basically, so Anya, of course, I really like everything she's brought in my life. And so she was first. Second was the nameplate. And then the third thing that happened that was so interesting is that right before I'm about to meet Perry, I go to a party, and then this woman gives me a business card, and it had octopus on it because that was her art. And she basically told me that and then I'm about to go to a part of Sarasota, Florida, where she has her art depicted in front of the building. So she basically tells me, you make sure you go there. So you see, there were all of these convergence points. I mean, there was just like, when the universe wants you to go in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. When you connect your heart to it, and yeah, there's so much. By the way, little side note, my cat was named Pythagoras. He is no longer alive, but the because he was a connective being, just like that. So when you, I mean, recently you have shown up and continued to show up in the space of thought and of being and the connection between science and spirituality. And you've been questioning by your knowing, by your feeling, by your connection to both of those spaces, you've been bringing the question to people, what is this? What is this that I haven't looked at? What is this that I've maybe felt but not seen? Why does my brain not understand it? Why does my gut feel the way it is? Why do I resonate with this or not? And for all of you out there who don't know, this is Shehnaz has worked for quite a while with NASA and is also featured on, like, recently you did um a podcast about UFOs and their broader implications from a perspective of our connectedness to all of this. And that's the other space that you show up in. And we often think of this as not being connected at all. And you connect them seamlessly. So I want to hear from you about your purpose, your real purpose, how these things come together in a way of why you're here.
So I'm someone who questions the question, right? And that's how I'm able to, because as above, so below, a lot of people say that, but how many people truly understand, right? So I'll give you the perspective which I have come to realize based on my own embodiment of the quantum being, right? So once I wrote the book, because I have always operated on the mental level, because that has been my scapegoat, because I feel very comfortable there,
Mm,
especially when physically and emotionally you have been traumatized most of your life. What happens? You have to find a place where no one can come and mess you up. And for me, that has been my safety place because nobody could argue with that. So I felt extremely good in my mental and spiritual place to stay there. But then I know that I'm here on earth for a reason and I need to maximize my presence here while I'm still here in this form. So because of that quest, I have been embodying the quantum being because it was easy for me to write about it. But it's it's a whole different ball game, especially for someone like me, because I operate off of our realms to actually embody it and start seeing and how I'm going to implement it. And the more I implement it, the more I realize that how incredible and interconnected everything else is, right? So to me, like, I don't know if you have watched the movie. That was a movie that I watched in Pakistan and I loved it. It's called Fantastic Voyage,
yes, actually,
right?
yes.
That's a brilliant movie to give you a
Yeah.
very good idea about as above, so below. Because if you think about it, just like you're exploring the space, you can
Mm,
explore your own body, right? It becomes a space when you are a small creature going in a spacecraft, right? Looking at what your body's made of. So to me, I think that when you start looking at everything and everything is operating off of fractal holographic reality, which actually is the fact, science is coming on par with it, right? So when you start noticing that, then every single thing gets repeated in every aspect of your life, whether you are, whatever you do, wherever you are continuously perpetuating that type of existence. So when you start understanding that secret formula, it becomes so much easier for you to see the forest versus the trees.
mm, yeah, yeah. I like to think of it, well, partially as having a 20,000-foot viewpoint, but it's more than that because there's the actual interconnection and interplay and the small versus the large, and that they're all connected, and that there is no small or large. There is this
It's all a perspective, right?
all
It's
yeah.
it's all a perspective, and then you get to decide which playground you are in. It's funny because, I actually, so I'll give you an example of my son, right? It's interesting. So my son, like, so his dad is a pilot, right? And so it's interesting because, how there is little that tendency that parents has, right? That if they were not able to do something or take it farther, and if they see that their children can, then sometimes they live through them. I mean, I think that to some extent, everybody's guilty of that, right? So his father is the pilot, right? And he's been grooming his son to be the best pilot, right? Because of course he doesn't have any ulterior motive. I'm just kidding. But the point is, so it's kind of like he's going in that direction. And then for me, like I've always looked at ocean as like the most incredible, beautiful thing, even though I work in the space arena, but ocean is something I have not explored personally. And I know that my son is a great swimmer. So I told him that if you want to explore ocean, then I'll help you, get the training that you need. So then I was saying that isn't it ironic that your dad wants you to explore the space? I want you to explore the ocean. It's the same, but
Yeah.
it's two different perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And we each are born into that perspective somewhere because we're born in near the ocean, or we're born in the grass in the plains or the desert, and we see so much more of the sky than those people who are born in the trees, and we see things from the perspective of the mountains, the valleys, the rainforest that we're born in, and then we step out and we say, "Oh, what is that?"
Right.
Well, yeah, it's another configuration of the same thing that we are.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
this is non-linear thinking, but honestly, for me, as another non-linear thinker, I don't see it as non-linear. It's just it's there. It's all there. And do you see yourself taking leaps, or do you only see yourself taking leaps relative to those around you? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, for me, it's the first one always because everybody else is just a mirror to you, and they are going to show up based on your frequency and vibration. So if
Mm,
you're always doing everything based on the people around you, then you're not exploring the vistas that are undiscovered by your subconscious mind.
mm, mm. Yeah. How do you describe that those barriers are created? Are they created externally, or are they created internally? Are barriers to seeing, to vibrating, to being?
Always, because it's internal is an external, right? Our inner world is what's being projected through the outer worlds. So when you understand that relationship, then that is why the best place for you to do any kind of introspective or any kind of self exploration has to come from within, right? Because otherwise, if you do it from external, then you're again very biased. And when you're biased, then you're creating a box. So if you want to really remove all the boxes, you're going to have to go all the way to yourself. And the only person who can make you see that is going to be, it has to be you, because that's the only way you can be more pure about it. And once you discover that, then of course, then you go to people you trust or go to people you love, and that's your choice. But then that way you're springboarding off of your own innate intelligence rather than getting programmed by everyone else's agenda.
Mm, mm, yeah. How um how we get there is unique to each of us because of what our environment, what our inner environment is, what our nurturing environment is as we're growing up. But once we get to that space, I think everybody in this movement is so comfortable with one another, and I mentioned before, non-judgment, because it doesn't even occur to us to judge, because we flow with one another, and that's something that you started, though, well before you entered the Octopus Movement. But you probably weren't always in a state of flow when you first entered school as a woman, as a woman in your society. what was, what were some times in your life when you felt, or describe one when you felt like there had to be more, there had to be, that this was not acceptable, to be barred, and that you wanted to go forward in the way that you do?
Yeah, that was all the time. I think as soon as I became aware of my existence, I started questioning everything, partly because I did give myself a very extreme scenario where I was in full fledged captivity under the patriarchal culture, being a girl and being Muslim. And there were just so many restrictions in my life from the day one, right? Like how you interact with the men in general or boys in general. How do you
Yeah.
interact with elders? There were a lot of guidelines in my growing up, and to me, I just felt like there were just so much guidelines that there was no room to breathe with the way you would want to be. Like you had no room to even figure out who you are because you're continuously moving from one guideline to another. You're supposed to be like, it's almost like a Lady Diana, right? In a different way, that you are not able to do whatever you want at any point in your life. Like as soon as you are awake, you are having to follow everybody else's agenda. I felt it very strongly and I didn't like it, but I didn't know how to escape it. So I became very depressed in my own way. And I started doing a very dark poetry. It's funny because my poetry book that I see that's done in my language, it's very much reminds me of the Beetlejuice movie where that character, remember the girl that wears all black and she's always saying all, I just completely depicted her in my household because that's how I felt. Like I was completely out of place and I was not understood. So I started doing the poetry. That was my way of expressing myself. And when I read my poetry now, of course, I laugh at myself because it's hilarious how dark they were. But that actually showed how I felt. And the very fact that I felt it, I knew that nobody understood me. I knew I had a quest to exit it. I believe that there is something better out there always because that is the reason I made it this far. Because if I wouldn't have believed in it, I would have never been able to talk to you right now on this subject.
Hmm. Yeah. So would you say that you are an end goal thinker, that you are looking outward, or are you a present thinker? I don't think you're a past thinker, but you could tell me I'm wrong. But do you think you're more of a future or an end goal thinker, or do you think you're a right now thinker?
So the thing is that for me, I operate because everything is interconnected, right? Your past, present, and future. So, but everything that I do it beginning with an end in mind. You know, the quote from Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and that is embedded in me, right? So every single thing that I do, I'm very aware. I'm very intentional about it, and of course, I give myself a room to cry and be a victim every now and then, and it's fine. But I'm very aware of all I do because and that's what I teach and that's what I exude. Because when you become and of course everything that I've learned to date, if I can share that with the younger generation, then to me, if my younger self would have known everything that I know right now to date, definitely I would have probably enjoyed life more, right? I probably would have given myself an opportunity to enjoy life more because I was so much bogged down by the density of the uh, of the misalignment that I wasn't able to play as much, right? And now my goal is to play and then teach other how to play more by knowing that, you know, that ultimately everything that we go through affects what is coming our way.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We don't learn, respond to what it is that's happening around us, we're probably not alive. We're just probably, it's just not really
That's true. Then
possible
we're
not.
just, yeah, we are just extra in someone else's movie.
Yeah. 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 So what is a quantum coach?
So the quantum coach basically traverses space and time when I am interacting with the clients for their healing. Truly, there's no boundary, right? There's no conditions. There's no like you have to go to the therapist for 30 years to become someone whole. It's all about instantaneous reprogramming of subconscious mind. And
Mm.
that's pretty much what, we're always programming each other and ourselves with our conversation. But for me, I recently finished my hypnotherapy license under Dolores Cannon, so I understand that even better than before. So I embody all my certifications, all my wisdom, all my knowledge, everything that I vibrate as, and I'm basically handing them over something that is going to change their life for good.
Mm. Mm. When you speak of this, it's very much like the limitations of that a lot of our let's just say our society as we know it, our schooling as we know it, our social structures as we know it are based on work for a certain amount of time, work for 10,000 hours, and you will be an expert. And it's an amount of time. It has nothing to do with what happens in that time, how you perceive that time, what your integrity is in that time. It's just an arbitrary going around the clock. And what we complete in school is about the time, the years, the grades based on the item that's placed before us. And what you're saying is something completely different, which is what makes sometimes the disconnect for people with structures, because the structures may tell us that, oh, it's this linear, it's this logical, it's this scientific reality. And what you're saying is that there's no, that exists as a possibility, but this is also the possibility, and this is, to me, to put a really linear word on it, it's more efficient. It's more efficient.
Exactly, because to me, I use time as a tool, right? So, like if you want to draw a straight line, you're going to use a ruler. Ruler is a tool. But if
Mhm.
you let the ruler enslave you with your drawing and you no longer are going to draw anything but with the ruler, then you have limited yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So, time for you, and this is, definitely maybe going outside of the auspices of the podcast, which we have only supposedly 7 minutes left, but time for you um, as an entity, do you see it as being fluid? Do you see it as being malleable? Do you see it as being accessible only when we tie into it? Do you see it? How do you see it? What words would you use for time?
So the word I use for time is what Mike Dooley says it very well. It's called trace each other into material existence. I use time purely as a tool. I don't wear I don't ever wear watches or anything. I
No.
only, of course, I do work in a very, very time constraint. My life, of course, as a NASA engineer, right? I have to attend the meeting at a certain time. Plus, even as someone who wants to spread this message, I have to attend this podcast at a certain time. So time is part of my life and I do value it. And I do, like, if you are like even few seconds late, then I would be like, what happened? Because I am very tuned into the time when I'm about to meet someone or about to do something. However, at the same time, time doesn't run my life. I choose to use time as a tool, like I said, like a ruler. But when I sleep, and if in the morning I know that I don't have to wake up at a certain time, that then I just don't even set up an alarm. But if I have to catch a plane flight, then I set up an alarm. So basically, what I'm saying is I kind of decide how to use it for my own benefit, right? Like my benefit, because I want to experience certain thing in life. I want to be a NASA engineer. I want to be in this interview. So these are important events in my life. And
Yeah.
because of that, I'm using time as a tool. Time dilation is another word a lot of people use. And the interesting thing is, the only reason you even have to use the word time dilation is because you are enslaved to time. If you're not enslaved to time, then it won't matter. Because at the end of the day, we don't live based on time. We experience everything based on the movement. And that movement can last eternity, even though according to the time, it may have been only a minute. You see my point? So the
Yes.
movement is encompassed in the embodiment of the experience at all your existence level, like your physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And if everybody starts recognizing that time is a great tool, yes, we need to use it. However, we are not supposed to enslave by it. That's where the discernment comes in. And I think that we should definitely start doing it more now than ever because time was never meant to run the show.
No, no. Time is like air, is like water, is like love, is like existence, and yet it's not. It is there, and none of these other things would enslave us. Why
Yeah,
why
because
would
they
we?
are exactly. And that is the thing. It's almost like, just like, you get enslaved by your cell phone, right? You get enslaved by your television, right? Those are suppose
Yeah.
they had a purpose. Of course, television is for entertainment. Yes, use it for entertainment, but don't let the entertainment enslave you because then you're not doing the justice, right? Yeah, use your phone for communication and for using enhancing your knowledge. That's good. But don't let your phone enslave you. Like to me, one thing that really, and I have to bring this up, is that when you, like, I have noticed that even in the corporate environment, right? If I go in person to someone and that person is either on the phone or either on the computer, most of the time people give priority to what they're doing on the computer or on the phone rather than interacting with this crystalline being that shows up right in front of them. And interacting with that person is going to give them way more healing than interacting with the laptop or the cell phone or the clock. But people always make choices based on their subconscious programming, which is why they do what they do. They always have done. And I want to reprogram that mindset because the human in front of you should always take the priority no matter what.
I love that you bring up that it's that the human in front of you, the connection, the real person brings the healing, is that's not our priority. Our priority is not in general the connection or the healing. It's the how we show up and how we get the job done. And that's it's not going to follow us to the grave. It's not going to, but our connections and the energy that we bring between us is what propels us forward. But somehow, yeah, where our subconscious programming doesn't say that. So someone who wants to reprogram themselves to heal, to be your to talk to you, to be your client, how will they reach you?
So my website pretty much has everything in it. I would recommend them to read the book because it pretty much gives them a lot of good understanding of how everything comes together. And in my
Yeah.
website, under the shop, they can go and book a session with me, a one-on-one coaching, quantum coaching. They can also purchase my two courses that are already out there, where one is light body activation, which is all about doing that every single day. And the second one is reality shopping, which is all about discernment.
So purchase the book first, the book, The Quantum Being. And can someone get that at your website, or can they also find it on at a bookstore, on Amazon, on the places that people shop?
Yeah, I think they should be able to find it on Amazon and all the major bookstores. So, and of course, on my website, there's information there as well. Yes.
Beautiful. So, as we end this call, what are you looking forward to in the coming week or the coming amount of time that you're looking at?
I just have a lot of excitement going on right now. I'm actually going to meet my sister after 7 years. So I'm excited about that. I'm leaving next week to go to Paris to see her. And yeah, there's a lot of other things that are cooking actually. And I would like everybody who likes what I shared is to sign up on my newsletter because I am very much looking forward to go to sacred sites with a handful of people to do light body activation.
Beautiful. And where can we find that newsletter?
So just sign up on my email and then I'll be communicating with them.
Beautiful. Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much for this conversation, for this very space of being together. I am grateful to you, and thank you for being a founding member of the Octopus Movement.
Yeah, thank you, Lydia, for your presence as well. Appreciate it.